Tim Scott, Nancy Mace. I'm sure most of the other South Carolina Republicans are going to get behind Donald Trump.
It's a shame.
I just love you.
No, that's good.
We had a case where we had an African-American guy who was a fan of mine. Great fan, great guy. In fact, I want to find out what's going on with him. You know what look at my African-American over here.
I think this is a sign that Trump himself is clearly concerned. Should we take it as that, the fact that he's getting every South Carolina Republican on board with his campaign?
I mean, I think so. I mean, it would be normal procedure. It's what you would do if you're running, but he's not a normal candidate.
Wish covered the oranges, how it started.
In the failing New York Times by an anonymous, gutless coward.
They sacrifice every day for the furniture and future of their children.
Tim Apple.
Mike Pounds.
I know words. I have the best words.
So my sense is he's probably nervous and probably calling in all of those sort of favors, or really more like threatening people to get them to support him, and saying, he'll support primary opponents and all these kinds of things. I mean, again, good practice would be to line up endorsements ahead of primaries as best you can. But I think in his case, he doesn't do anything the way normal. So he maybe did the right thing for the wrong reasons, is the best way to put it. He's lined up those endorsements, which he should, but I think he is doing it from a place of fear, because the popular governor, New Hampshire, Sununu, got behind Nikki Haley. I mean, again, it's not going to do an ounce of good. You know what I mean? But I do think she's going to get, especially with DeSantis, that, I mean, I have a hard time when we start talking about the pathetic creatures of the Republican Party, because every time we come up with one, like a Rubio or a Ted Cruz, who I think is just the slimiest, most pathetic thing I've ever seen in my life, another one comes along and maybe has them beaten, or at least tied. And so, of course, DeSantis, who wasn't going to back down, I think that was his slogan, won't back down, back down, and immediately then endorsed Trump after Trump insulted him, called him a meatball, among other things. Had all sorts of names for him. And I think even when they asked Trump how he felt about his endorsement, he took a shot at Ron DeSantis after he endorsed him. So, I mean, again, to want power as badly as these people do, I can't imagine that. Like, I guess you got to be a different person to imagine the level of self-debasement they're willing to go through.
I couldn't ever do that. I couldn't. If someone was out there insulting my wife, because he insulted DeSantis's wife, like he did with Cruz's wife, and and these things, and yet these guys, they put their tail between their legs.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
I mean, it really is kind of one of those things that I think this is a major difference between Republicans when you and I were growing up in like the 80s and 90s, especially early 90s. Republicans would never have tolerated this. You don't talk to other people like this. And today it's just, you basically, have to go through the initiation once again. If basically Trump, starts, railing on you, you basically have to accept it and say, I thought it was a good insult against my own wife, that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, this may be too much of a generalization, but I think, especially living here, and I mean, the sort of the old Republican Party was one of what conservatism actually means, and you can disagree with it, and I disagree with a whole lot of it, but sort of traditionalism and caution, and so they were very hesitant to do anything, especially, for example, a universal health care plan and that kind of thing, and all of that came from sort of Midwest caution, isolationism, that kind of thing, right? As defined by the Taft family from here would be a great example. You sort of had three distinct parties. You had the Northern Democratic Party, and then you had the Southern Democratic Party, which were where all the insane people were, who were the racists, frankly. And they would, so they get votes of some Northerners and some things they join on economic proposals. Because that was sort of the culture of the day, was very much a government intervention and that kind of thing. And once they became the base of the Republican Party, this is the kind of sort of sleaze, and I'm not saying about the South overall, but Southern politics, especially Southern right-wing politics, racist politics, sexist, has had a lot of this. And I think that became the core central nature.
I've never heard once in this chamber anybody say to the homosexuals, stop what you're doing. Do you realize that if they would stop what they're doing, there would not be one additional case of AIDS in the United States of America?
When Bob Michael, this moderate conservative, had been the head of the House, who's a perfect sort of embodiment of old Republicanism from Illinois, gets displaced by Newt Gingrich of the three wives, of the, hi, I'm dumping my wife in the hospital with cancer for the new one. And one of them was a teacher of his, and he was a student. And one of, there's the one that right now that looks like she's a hostage. I don't mean that in the way of course, of Elise Stefanik. In other words, she didn't go breaking on January 6th and then become a hostage. But I do mean like what's her face? Callista,
Callista,
who looks like she actually doesn't close her eyes ever. I mean, in any case, I'm being mean, but I don't care. It's Newt Gingrich, and he's a horrible human being, and he brought that sort of style. They had the old cautious Bob Michael style, and then you got Newt Gingrich, sleazy, teaching them how to attack and how to win elections at any cost, and all that, and that changed that party. And Mitch McConnell eventually from Kentucky, and it just the party's center. It comes from a whole different place now.